just picked up this John Deere 140, and I've wanted one of these things for quite some time now. I happened to find this on Marketplace, as I typically do, and it was $500, and I couldn't pass it up. So I went ahead and bought this thing, and I was pleasantly surprised with how good a shape this machine is in for, I believe it to be a 1974 model. So this is the H1. As you can see, there's only one hydraulic lever, and that's for the snowplow that this thing came with, which this is what I want to use it for, is snow plowing. So I was super thrilled to find one with the snowplow already on it. Now you can see this thing's not in perfect shape, and right now it's not running. With a jump starter hook to it and a little starting fluid, it popped, and that's about all I know about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get into this thing. I'm gonna start with just the simple things. I'm gonna take the battery out, get it on the charger, and then go through the carburetor, clean it up, and make sure the fuel lines are clean. And we'll see if we can get it running on its own, and from there we'll get it cleaned up and try and make this thing a nice little tractor here. So before I get into anything on this machine, I'll give you guys a little walk around. This plow is actually in really nice shape. The blade appears straight, and even the cutting edge looks to be in pretty good condition. You can see there is a leak somewhere in this hydraulic ram. Now on the H3 version, there's hydraulic couplers here as well as here, but on the H1 there's only hydraulic couplers on the right hand side of the machine here. This has got the original engine. It's a Kohler cast iron. You can see this battery's seen better days, so we'll get that on the charger right away. This is a hydrostatic drive, reverse, neutral in the middle, and forward. Independent brake pedals, and that's just a really cool feature, and almost no lawn tractors nowadays have that. Actually, I really don't think any of them do. Unfortunately, the seat is in pretty bad shape on this machine and most likely not salvageable, which kind of stinks because it still has potentially the original sticker on there, which is really neat. On the rear end, the reflector on the left hand side is broken, and on the right hand side is missing. You can see the tin is a little bit bent. Even the bottom of the seat looks to be in good shape, which a lot of these are broken, and really a shame that that seat cushion's all torn up. It came with tire chains. So that's the overview. I have not cleaned it, washed it, anything. This is just how I got it. Rolled it off the trailer last night. I'm gonna pop the battery off and pop the air cleaner off and see if I can get that carburetor cleaned and get the battery charged. Oh yeah, that gas is terrible. That smells awful. Well, I suppose I ought to drain this fuel tank out now. Now that I know it's filled with old bad gas, I'm gonna drain the tank out and clean it out, and I'll continue to pull this carburetor out and I'll get it all cleaned up, but I'm definitely gonna have to remove this fuel tank and get all that gas drained out, because that gas just smells terrible. And also, the previous owner told me that this machine hasn't really ran in at least 5 years, maybe even longer, but nonetheless, that smells like ethanol gas gone bad. So I'm gonna get it all drained out. Just pop the carburetor off, 2 bolts, super simple. You gotta love working on these old really simple machines. I mean, it really doesn't get too much easier than this. You gotta love it. Gonna get that carburetor all cleaned up now and drain out whatever's left in that fuel tank. So I removed the fuel tank from the 140, and if you guys can see in here, try and get you. So if you guys can see in the fuel tank here, so what I'm gonna try and do is fill this thing with a couple different chemicals to try and break up all that rust and gunk at the bottom of the fuel tank. So on the fuel tank, I filled it up with some diesel fuel, and then I took some compressed air, blew through the fuel line, and then work the valve back and forth. That's free now. And then I just took this thing and I filled it up with a bunch of nuts, just some 9/16 nuts. Put a little cap on it and gave it a shake. And that really helped to clean up the rust inside there. Alrighty, well, I got a volunteer here who says she's willing to put this carburetor back together. And now this is a pretty simple one, so this should be good to learn on. So let's walk through it. So this is the carburetor body. And I typically like to start with this is called the seat, and this is the needle. This goes inside here, and this is what controls fuel into the carburetor. So this guy goes into there. You don't, yep, just go ahead right like that. And get it threaded in. This is a kind of a tricky one because there's not a lot of room to work with. Not break these little posts, but this goes in like this. And then I'm going to wipe this off. And this is what's called the float. And so as this, which is basically a metering device, see the fuel comes in from the fuel line and pushes this down. And so fuel fills up the carburetor until this float, which does exactly what it sounds like, a little buoy. It fills up and it closes this, so it shuts off. You're going to only find that it goes in from one side. I'm going to clean off this gasket because we're going to reuse it because this is all we have. But in the meantime, what now goes in here is the main jet. So this guy goes in like this. And you take the screwdriver and, yep, just till it kind of stops. And then try and get it in that little groove there. I use my fingernails. Now, I always like to do is hold this upside down here, and then if this was working, you can see that float there. You see how it goes up? I always make sure that works before I put it back together. Go ahead and take the bowl, and that just goes on any which way. So on the top here, you're going to install the screws. This spring goes on here.
And then does this go all the way down?
So screw it, and then I use this, and I screw it until basically it stops moving. Right about there. Okay, so you see how, grab that screwdriver again, you see where you're facing? Now you want to back it out exactly 2 turns, because that's where it was when we started. So you got to follow where you're at. 2 turns, perfect. And then this one goes in here. 2. So now they're both at 2 turns out. And so we can adjust these based on how we want it to run and the temperature that we're operating the tractor in. So if you're running it in the winter, you might want to adjust it just because the air is a little bit colder and less dense than in the summer. So, all right, back out here the next day working on the old John Deere 140 that I just picked up yesterday. And, well, actually I picked it up 2 days ago now. But anyway, I got everything I think I need to get this tractor back in action. So let me show you guys. This should be everything we need to get this unit working. I was luckily able to go in town and pick up a brand new air filter, and I got this fuel filter and inline filter because we cleaned that tank out. New spark plug, I happen to just have this one. I went to Walmart actually and got this battery. It was just the cheapest around. I ended up getting a group size 26, which I think will fit in this. The original 22F that came out of it was totally shot. I tried charging it and it was just no good, and it still had water in it, so that thing had just seen better days. I have no idea how old it was. I grabbed some oil, some 10W30. I got a new wing nut for this air cleaner cap, and then as you guys saw, we were able to get this carburetor all cleaned up, and I just reused every gasket, every jet. Everything has been reused, not a single part replaced. However, everything was pretty thoroughly clean. Now, of course, I got the fuel tank here that is all cleaned up. We got a little bit of non-ethanol gas. and a radio that only plays the classics. So between all this stuff, if we don't get this thing running, well, we will get it running. Who am I kidding? It's bound to work. When you got a radio playing the classics, things are gonna work. The classics are gonna work, right? So I guess I better start turning some wrenches and get this thing all back together, and hopefully it'll fire right up. And I would say we'll hit the road, but there's no road to hit. We'll hit the grass, but there's no mower deck. We'll hit the dirt. I don't know. Maybe I'll push some dirt. We'll see. So I just started draining the oil out, and as I pulled the plug, it sounded like some metal hit the bottom of that oil pan, which, you know, that's never a good sign. So I guess we're gonna have to look into that. Like I said, I did hear this thing run. It popped off starting fluid when I bought it, but that's got me a little bit concerned. I thought this was going too well, so that kind of makes up for that. So I'm gonna try and sift some of that oil out of this metal and see what it is. Sift some metal out of this oil to find out what it might be from. I took the old oil, I used a rag to try and filter out any particles. That way they didn't just go in the waste. And here's what we're left with. That's not very good. That all looks like cast metal pieces. Definitely cast iron. I'm not even going to begin to speculate what it is until we start this thing up and hear if it makes any noise or what's going on with this thing. Anyway, it's got new oil in it. It's got fuel in it. I guess I'm going to go ahead and turn the fuel on. I got this filter installed here. Just going to start filling that up. Okie dokie. Well, there's nothing left to do now but to start this thing up and see what it does. Cross our fingers. Give it a little more choke. Well, it doesn't knock or anything, but that carb bowl is leaking. Probably because I reused the old gasket. I'm going to try and snug that up and see if I can get it to stop leaking. So I guess that carburetor bowl gasket is just no good. I tried snugging it up, but it's leaking like a sieve, so I just turned the gas off. I went back here to check the fluid. Yeah, I don't think that's right. I think we're going to have to do some adjustments here. See if we can get this fill tube readjusted. Well, the 140 might not run great yet, but it does run good enough to deserve a pressure wash. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this thing up to the house and start pressure washing all the grease off, and hopefully this thing will shine like new. Back at it on the 140. As you can see, some of that gas dripping down kind of stained the paint there, unfortunately. Now, before I just go rob the bowl gasket out of here, I think I'm actually going to try this carburetor and just bolt it right on and see how it runs. From past experience, I haven't had good luck with these, but I'm always willing to try. So I'm going to go ahead and get this bolted on and just see how it runs. If it runs like crap, I'll probably just take that bowl gasket and swap it out with the OEM carburetor. Well, I've never had good luck with these cheap Chinese replacement carburetors, and this one was no exception. This thing did sacrifice its carburetor bowl gasket as well as the bowl nut gasket to the original Kohler carb. And really this thing didn't even line up because the choke is backwards for how this carburetor is set up. The fuel inlet is going about 45 degrees the wrong way. Now that I could have easily changed, but the choke being backwards was not helping this situation. Plus, from past experience, like I said, I have not had good luck with these. I ended up finally getting the new spark plug in. I tried to do this the other day and I apparently grabbed the wrong one. So I got the new plug in there. Now, the moment of truth, I'm gonna turn on the fuel. There it goes. It's gonna start filling up the filter. And the carburetor bowl seem tight. So we'll cross our fingers and hope that there's no leaks. So I'll let this fill up for a minute and we'll get back at you. It does appear a little bit wet, of course. I just can't seem to win with this thing for such a simple part. Well, let's see. Kind of back to square one here. After rebuilding the 140 carburetor multiple times, I decided to leave the bowl off, let it fill with fuel, and try and figure out what was happening. Well, as soon as I would push the float down, the needle would seat, and then the fuel would stop. However, it was continuously flooding out of the overflow in the back of the carburetor. So I decided to take the float out and put it in some gasoline. And well, you can see the end result. Now I did drill that out a little bit. There was a fair-sized hole in there. I drilled it out to try and clean it up. So now I'm going to try and solder this back together. I'm not sure how well that'll work considering there's already some extra solder on this thing. It might weigh down a little too much. So I'm going to try my best here, but get this soldered up so the float floats again. Okay, so I used my little soldering gun here and some solder. And there's my repair. I filed it down a little bit. That was kind of tricky. That was a rather big hole, so I didn't want to apply too much and weigh it down. But it does appear that there's no visible leaks. So with a cup of water here, just going to hold this under for a while, and I don't see any air bubbles, so that's a good sign. But I'm going to hold that under for a while and make sure that it floats back to the top. Got the carburetor reinstalled on the engine and the fuel is turned back on. Granted, at this point, we're pretty much out of fuel, but the filter is filled with fuel and there is no active fuel leak as there was before. You can kind of tell by the way the paint's discolored there. So I'm thinking my little repair worked, but there's no way to know until we get it fired up and see how it actually runs. So I'm gonna get the air cleaner put back together here, and we'll fire it up. No surprise there, dead battery. Got the battery charger hooked up here on engine start, so hopefully this will provide us some better results. Well, maybe we are a little too low. Nah, there is some in there. I would think it should fire off of that. Choke is operating. Give it a little throttle. I'm gonna let this battery charge up. I was able to just rotate the fill tube on the transmission and get it right into place. I will still have to purchase a new cap. And then I'm sure you guys saw this. I just went down to the John Deere dealership, and for $20 I got this cover just to stick over it. So that's plenty fine for now. The seat's not going to get any worse under there, hopefully. I just topped off hydro fluid with some John Deere low viscosity high guard, which is the preferred product for winter use. Since it's the summertime and I can't push any snow with this mower like I was intending, what I can do is push dirt with it. I'll be honest, I don't think it pushes dirt too bad after trying it out. So I'll let you guys check out me moving dirt with something that shouldn't or wasn't made to do it. So I think that's where I'm going to leave the John Deere 140. This thing runs pretty good now. It drives good. Honestly, I don't think this tractor has a whole lot of hours on it just based on the condition, how nice it is. I think I'm just going to leave it right like this, and I'm going to use it just as it sits. And then I'll just use this little tractor to plow snow in my driveway because that's what I got it for, and I think it'll work just fine doing that. I mean, it's worked fine for all these years, so what's a few more? This is also a very high serial number. So this is towards the end of the line. Like I said, I believe it's a 73. And I think this cart is near similar. So I would like to restore this cart. This is a later model, late 80s, which kind of matches the 430 that I have. There's just another look into future projects I got with these John Deere 80 carts. As far as the 140 goes, I think I'm going to wrap this video up. I'd like to take a video or two showing this thing get put to work in the winter and plowing some snow. So I might have to bring you guys along for that and show you this thing actually doing what it's always done. And if you're wondering how my 2150 tractors are going, here's a sneak peek.